All right, picking right back up where we left off at, I think this is a good time to go into talk about the pineal gland, right? But I wanted to point out there was a tab that I had just closed where Paul talks about going into the Holy of Holies, and that's important because I'm going to make that connection basically with the pineal gland. Pineal gland, I believe it's pronounced something like that, but I'm pretty sure you understand what I mean, or you will. But he calls the way of going through the flesh or going through the veil into the Holy of Holies through Jesus, through Christ. He calls that the new and living way. Remember, he's talking about the new covenant as opposed to the dead letter. So he's saying that this is going into the Holy of Holies, basically seeing your face, realizing that, the Christ is within, not without. Okay, so he's saying basically the same thing. So we're going to talk about this gland. Alright, and you can do your own research on this. I actually recommend that you research everything that I say because you need to come to your own conclusion in revelation like I did, as opposed to just either believing it blindly or not believing it blindly. Either way. But you should research it yourself, in my opinion. Okay? You'll find out some very, very interesting things. Some things don't line up with, like, for example, this is normally what I do. I can read someone's book of research. I can read their basically the book that they have that summarizes their research, that whether it be about the historical Christ, or whether it be about astral travel, whether it be about out-of-body experience or near-death experience, or for example the pineal gland, history, anything like that. If I'm reading that stuff, I always cross-reference it. When they say this is what they believe and they got it from a source, if it's their opinion, then I'll take it as their opinion, right? And then I can measure that against my opinion or my knowledge. Now, if it's something they say that they've researched, that experts say, those things I look up. Sometimes I can find the answer, sometimes I can't. But when I can find the answer, then I can say whether I agree with them or not, because I've gone and done my own research to try to prove them wrong. And either I prove them wrong or I prove them right. If I prove them wrong, then I disbelieve that part, but I try to understand what their motive was behind that. If I prove them right, then I have to, because I've done the research myself, I have to admit to myself that I was wrong. So through that, I'm able to have a pretty balanced set of beliefs, but not as balanced as I'd like to be, because sorry for that, but because because of still old traditional beliefs and just a way of seeing things has still got me on a balance that I don't like. So just being honest there, but that's what I did. So that's what I encourage you to do, so that you can have pretty much the exact same experience that I did, so that you can come to your own conclusion. So the pineal gland, I'm just going to pretty much, because I really want you to look for yourself. You'll see many different things. I mean, this is only Wikipedia, meaning that well, I don't want to say only Wikipedia, but you have to know that this is not necessarily the most credible source. This can be edited by regular people, from what I understand. I know internet marketers who use Wikipedia to their own gain, so I know it can be manipulated. I'm not saying that everything on it is not correct, because science has proven this, what a lot of these things that they say, and that's where they get their information from. But what I'm trying to say is I'm not using them as the authority. I've heard this from many different quote unquote, well, I don't want to say quote unquote experts, but experts. I want to say quote unquote because you don't know who they are yet, but you may eventually. Okay, so let me just preface that with this, because what I'm going to say about this seems pretty far out there in a way. All right, I guess let's just at least go to Wikipedia and come here to look at some imagery. That's what the most important part is, so that you can see that this is not made up. There is a definite reason for this, like definite correlation with the pineal gland and religious history and belief. It's crazy, but I've never actually looked at this either. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but that's pretty cool. I mean, that's the eye of Horus right there, and this is pretty much the part of the brain where the pineal gland is. but I'm not sure if how accurate that is myself. But I mean, we can all recognize that that's supposed to be part of the brain, and this is supposed to be the eye right here. So, but the reason that they would even use that symbolism is because the eye of the eye of Horus, or the pineal gland itself, is considered to be the third eye. Reason being is that it has a very, very, very similar structure to, it has cells within it that are very, very similar to the retina in our eye, and it's also wired into the, I don't know how you say it, but basically the part of the brain that is visual, the visual cortex or something like that. So it's wired into that part as well. There's a different word that they use, something photo translucent cascading or something like that, some different word that they use, but basically that's what it means, that this gland is an eye, is wired into the part that allows us to see also. So, and it also has retina tissue type cells in it, which what they do is translate imagery. So why do we have a third one that's inside of our head? Right? It's not, it's a part of the brain, but it's not inside of the brain. So it's outside of the brain. It's not in the I don't know what they call it, the brain blood barrier or something like that. It's inside of the brain, not inside of the brain. It's outside of the brain. So it's a part of the brain, but outside of the brain. All right, so it's different. And it's pretty much, they believe that it's the eye of the dreams. It's the eye that allows us to see dreams, which is why that's so important, is because we're going to start here. I make myself known. Oh wow, I make myself known. I think that's what he says though. Okay. This is when, basically, when God is making the distinction between Moses and his brother and sister Aaron and Miriam, because I think they judged him, saying that they were prophets just like Moses, and then he was trying to say that pretty much, no, you're not. All right, so let's look at this really quick. The pineal gland produces serotonin, which is, if I'm not mistaken, because I just heard something about research on this, that that serotonin is what makes us happy, or gives us that happy feeling. Isn't that ironic that this third eye produces that, and which is a derivative of melatonin? It basically is one of the foundations or chemicals that creates melatonin, which is what regulates our sleep cycle. So the pineal gland is basically it regulates our sleep cycle. So from the cycle of what I told you before about sleep paralysis, all the way up into the cycle where you're actually dreaming, then you go, basically there's a wake up cycle. Usually you wake up after the dream, and then you begin the cycle all over again. We usually don't remember that cycle. We usually don't remember our dreams, right? So this gland does that. It's an eye in our head that produces serotonin, which is what makes us happy, and melatonin, which is what regulates the sleep cycle. You know, modulates the wake-sleep pattern, right? Now, okay, here we go. Its shape resembles a tiny pine cone, hence the name, and it's located near the center of the brain between the two hemispheres, in the middle of the two hemispheres. That is important too. Tucked in the groove where the two rounded thalamic bodies join. Okay, so it's talking about where the two parts of the brain come together is where this eye is. It's right in the center. It's shaped like a pine cone, which is why the symbology here is so important. It's right in the center of the two hemispheres. Remember that. Alright, so every time we see two things around it, we know why now. Okay? So there's a reason for that. So, alright. Resembles a pine cone, regulates the sleep cycle. Man, this thing is a piece of work. Okay, near the center of the brain, between the two hemispheres, right? So we're going to tie this in. He said, listen to my words. When a prophet of the Lord is among you, I reveal myself to him in visions. I speak to him in dreams. Now that's so important because remember, I've already shown you how Joseph, being a man who could interpret dreams, remember, it was said that the Spirit of God was in him. Okay, that's why they gave him a new name, because it meant that they gave him a name that meant the Spirit of God was in him. That's crazy. So he became something totally different because he could interpret these dreams. They recognized him as something totally different. While at the exact same time, God was speaking to Pharaoh through a dream. Remember? He was trying to tell him. That's what Joseph said to Pharaoh. God is trying to tell. Well, let me bring this up just in case you guys have never seen this. The 7 cows. Sorry, spelled that wrong. Okay. So I'm just going to paraphrase all of this, but I just want you to see that it's actually here, just in case, because I know not everybody that's going to see this stuff has read scripture before or read the Bible. Now, what happened at the end of 2 full years that, Pharaoh had a dream. Okay, so we already see that God says here, I reveal myself to him in visions. Remember, we saw visions of the beast and the woman riding on the beast in Revelation. Remember that? So God was saying he was speaking to him as a prophet. But the crazy thing about it is he didn't understand still when he was getting that vision in Revelation. An angel had to reveal that to him. Just like in Daniel, angels had to reveal visions. They had to reveal the symbolisms that were in the visions. Here it says, I speak to him in dreams. So God here is trying to speak to Pharaoh in a dream. This whole dream is talking about what's getting ready to happen to him. Joseph interprets, then sent, right? He goes before Pharaoh. He says, I have a dream, but no one can interpret it. God is speaking to me, but I don't know what he's saying. And I heard it said about you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. You understand God's voice. Joseph then answered, that makes him a prophet. Joseph then answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Now, honestly, I don't understand that because it obviously is in him. God dwells in us. Even Pharaoh's going to say this later. But later, and then in another situation where he says, God gives interpretation, tell me your dream. So, I don't understand. Maybe he's trying to, say it's not the personality. I'm not sure. But God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. So Pharaoh spoke to Joseph in my dream, basically tells him what it is. Now Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has told to Pharaoh. You understand what he's saying? God spoke to Pharaoh that he is about to do. Oh, God has told to Pharaoh what he is about to do. Look at this. Listen to my words. When a prophet of the Lord is among you, I reveal myself to him in visions. I speak to him in dreams. He just spoke to Pharaoh in a dream, but Pharaoh couldn't understand it. Joseph just said that exact same thing. God is speaking to you in a dream. He's getting ready to tell you what he's about to do. Then he tells him that the 7 cows represent 7 years, just like Jesus. The seed is the word. This kind of ground represents this kind of person. It's the exact same thing. So he's saying that, God speaks to you in parables. God just spoke a parable to you, and now I'm getting ready to interpret it for you. A parable through a dream. But as we see in Revelation 7, so is a vision. A vision is also a parable. Now, both of these things are the exact same thing. Visions and dreams. Seeing in the symbolism. Now, let me go down here really quick and see what Pharaoh says. Then Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find a man like this, in whom a divine spirit is a divine spirit? And before, I guess in the King James it says, in whom is the Spirit of God. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has informed you all of this, he said to Joseph, since God has informed you, basically saying that he's a prophet, there is no one so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house according to your command. All my people shall do homage. Only in the throne I will be greater than you. Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took off his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. Now that's important because that signet ring is what stamps laws and decrees. That means that Joseph has the power to make laws, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be. I'm not a historian, but I know that that signet ring was for stamping. So Joseph now has the power to seal a document as with Pharaoh's signature on it. So whatever Joseph says is now law. You understand what that means? Translate that into a more metaphysical understanding, or even just in, having rule and command in your life. Because he understands what God is saying to him, he knows how to act on earth. He knows how to conduct himself. That's called righteousness, right understanding. So you have right useness. That's what it means. Righteousness, right useness. Joseph has right useness now. What he says is law. His words no longer hit the ground. You understand what I'm saying? He can speak life now. He can speak into existence. Joseph's so basically he put that on his hand, clothed him in garments. Now remember, this is the exact same thing that happened to the prodigal son. Got a new ring and got clothed in new garments. And put the gold necklace around his neck, and he had him ride in his second chariot, and they proclaimed before him, bow the knee. He had authority. Now that's significant because in the Hebrew mind, as a matter of fact, the word parable and authority are the exact same letters in the Hebrew. Though they're pronounced differently, but it's like saw and saw. So it's SAW. But for them it's mashal and mashal. That's how I say them. But one means parable, one means authority. So for one it's just a parable, but for the other it's authority. When you can interpret it, you have authority. If you can't interpret it, it's just a parable. So he set him over all the land. He said, though I am Pharaoh, yet without your permission, no one shall rise his hand or foot in all the land. So he says, though I am Pharaoh, yet without your permission, no one shall rise his hand or foot in all the land. Authority, because he could interpret the parable. He could hear God's voice. He could understand what God was saying. Then Pharaoh named Joseph that and gave him her for a daughter, right? Priest of On as his wife, and Joseph went forth over the land. Now I want to look this up. I'm gonna see if I can. I don't want to waste too much time on it though, because it means something. And names in Hebrew are a character. Let's see what this rabbi says. I just want a real definition though. He who is called, no. Okay, well, I guess you can look that up on your own. I don't want to, well, you know what, actually, that's what this is all about, so. Let's see if we can find it. Let's go to good old Wikipedia. I need something that's just going to define it. Great. Why did this even come up? Alright, never mind. Alright, we'll have to look that up at a different time, but I know it means something like whom the Spirit of God is in, or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But what I want you to see here is God is saying he reveals himself in dreams and visions. We've seen both of these occurrences over and over and over again, and in each occurrence they've been parables or symbolisms. Now God is getting ready to say something different here. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. See? He's I didn't know he said that, but he's saying he doesn't speak in riddles with Moses. He's saying he speaks face to face. And you know what's interesting? Oh my goodness. That's what's interesting about that, because I think the word visions is mirror. It's the word mirror. So that's why Paul is talking about the mirror darkly. See, and that's the difference between seeing face to face or knowing as you are known. This is what Jesus is talking about. This is what Paul is talking about. This is what all the epistles are talking about. It's the same thing. With him I speak face to face, clearly, and not in riddles. What did Paul say? We have an unveiled face, speaking not in riddles. We have boldness of speech. He sees the form of the Lord. Do you see? Oh my goodness, man. I forgot that part was even in there. That's exactly what Paul was saying. Man. And we with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his likeness with ever increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. That's what he says in the in the New International Version. You'd be more familiar with the King James. Well, no, not the Cambridge edition, but the KJV. I don't know where that is, but let's try this one. We all with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror. That's the one that it normally says. See, beholding in the mirror the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. So we with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord. But he's talking about unveiled face. So this isn't the mirror darkly, like he said in the other Corinthians, wherever that is, where he says, but we behold as in a mirror darkly, or we see in part. He's saying here that the face is unveiled, so it's no longer darkly, so we see the glory of the Lord, and we're changed into the same image. The glory of the Lord must be the image then. So we see the glory of the Lord in the mirror and are changed into that image, right? From glory to glory, from revelation to revelation, by the Spirit that teaches us. So that's what he's saying here. When I with him I speak face to face, in the mirror, clearly, not darkly, no veil, not in riddles, because the riddles are the veil. He sees the form of the Lord, the image of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? You see that there? That is crazy. That is crazy. Oh my goodness, man, that is crazy. See, and that's what's so interesting about the pineal gland, because it controls the dreams and the visions. It's the mind, it's the eye of the imagination. It's the eye that you see with when you close your two eyes. It's the eye of the Spirit. It allows you to see into that realm. God says he speaks through this, but then there's another way to see too. But really, the only way, the way for it to be, see, it's the exact same thing that happened on the day of Pentecost. Everyone heard them in their own language. Now, everyone there heard them in their own language, and it was the opposite, or the undoing of what happened at the Tower of Babel, where one language became many. All languages became one. Right? Let me see. And you'll see, man, this goes all the way down to the root of the very, very first religion. The very, very first religion was through imagination, or through the mind's eye, which is crazy. The very first art comes from, the very first expression of religion, was art that we see by people we think were primitive, but they were on different parts of the world putting the same thing on caves, the same art, trying to say something, trying to leave a legacy for their kids, a mark for their kids to see. Crazy. And it all came from this gland where God speaks. And it's funny how the ancients believed the exact same thing, that God spoke from this place. In the symbolisms, in the myths, in the religions, there was a place. There was a place, but the place was always symbolic of this gland where God speaks from. What we just see, where God says that he speaks from. Let me see. Go there. Okay, so he said, listen to my words. When the prophet of the Lord is among you, I reveal myself to him in visions. I speak to him in dreams. How does God speak to his prophets? Dreams and visions. But not so with Moses. He speaks with him face to face. See, the face to face is the interpretation of the symbolism. It's the ministry of the Christ. That's when you can see that, then God speaks to you face to face as a man speaks with his friend. No longer is it a servant master type thing. That's what Paul talks about when he says, let's just go to it. I want to show you this because you need to see this too, because that goes right with it. Remember, Paul talks about putting away childish things and becoming a man. I don't know any of these. Okay. Now so this, let's just go to chapter 4. I'm gonna go straight through that part. It says, as long as you don't know yourself, this is the opposite. Remember, Paul is talking about knowing even as he is known. And then he contrasts that with being a child and putting away childish things and becoming a man. So being known is becoming a man. Jesus said not being known is poverty. Alright. Now I say as long as the heir is a child, he does not differ at all from a slave, although he is owner of everything. But he is under guardians and managers until the date set by the Father. So also we, while we were children, were in bondage under the elemental things of the world. But when the fullness of time came, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, so that he might redeem those who were under the law, that we might receive the adoption as sons. Because you as sons, God has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into our hearts. And that's exactly where the law is also written, the character. Right, crying, Abba, Father. Therefore, you are no longer a slave, but a son, and if a son, then an heir through God. See, these are things that we already have attained, right? So we claim them in church. We claim them all the time, but we don't know what it means. We don't know how to attain it, so we just say it's ours. And we still live the exact same lives, have the exact same bondages, have the exact same penalties for these bondages. And it's elemental. It really is. It's really, really simple if you could see yourself. So as long as you are immature, as long as you are not known, you're no different from a slave. That's what's changed with Moses and God. I speak to him as a friend because there are no, it's like Joseph. It's not like Pharaoh. It's like Joseph. I speak to him as a friend. That's why even in bondage, he rose to the top. No matter where he was at, he was placed, right? He was placed under guardians and managers until he became the guardian and the manager. What happened was, remember, nobody anywhere could do anything without him saying anything. So remember, now I say to you, as long as an heir is a child, remember Joseph was immature. He knew his brothers hated him because he was his father's favorite. He did no work, but he still thought that it was cool to tell them that he had dreams of ruling over them, that God was showing him that he was going to rule over them. That's arrogant. That's immature. So as long as he's a child, he does not differ at all from a slave. That's why he was sold into slavery. That's why he was put into bondage. That's why he was put under guardians and managers, even though he became the owner of everything. Because listen, this is what happened. He becomes he's only second to Pharaoh in the throne, but really he has the signet ring. I mean, he rules the kingdom. Nobody can do anything without him. When the famine comes, basically, since they have all the bread, people bring him all the money. All the money goes to Joseph pretty much because, he's selling the bread. So Joseph now has all the wealth. People ran out of money, but they still needed this food because it was a 7-year famine, right? Nobody else knew this was coming, so they couldn't stock up like Joseph did. So You know, basically, after they run out of money, then they bring Joseph all of their cattle. So now Joseph has all the money and all the cattle. After they ran out of cattle, they came and gave him the deeds to the land. So now he has the money, the cattle, and the deeds to basically to all the land, because this is quote unquote a famine throughout the world. So he has all the wealth, all the land, all the cattle, because he had all the bread, because he could hear God. But he had to get to that point. He was literally owner of everything once he became the man, when he matured, when he became known. But first he had to lose his immaturity. He had to get God's vision. You know, it's like it's the exact same thing. Paul is saying that you can do great signs and wonders, you can know mysteries and all that, but if you don't have love, and love is maturity. So that means you can do all those things without love. You can do all those things without maturity. So yeah, he was able to interpret dreams as a child, but he was still immature, because look at his actions and look at the bondage that it got him into. You know what I mean? So but even that was used for good, like it was the process. But that's what it is here. That's the process. A child is under guardians until the date set by the Father. That's what he's saying. He redeemed us. Where does it say? At the fullness of time came. That's when he sent forth his son. He sent. So you see what he's saying there? It's the exact same thing. When we grow up is when he's really sent forth his son. That's why Christ, you know, even in the story, Jesus didn't receive the Spirit until he was 30, when he became a man, when it was time for him to start his ministry. That's why, you know, when the scripture talks about Jesus, it talks about him saying, God says, now I have made you my son. Let me see. Now I have made you. Today I have made you my son. You are my son. Today I have made you my son. Alright. You are my son. Today I have become your father. Now this one has a, there we go. Matthew 17. This is my son in whom I am well pleased. With him I am well pleased. I just saw this in the New Testament being quoted. I'm trying to see where it was applied at. Okay, I think this is it. So Christ also did not take upon himself the glory of becoming a high priest, but God said to him, you are my son, today I have become your father. Okay, so here we go again. Paul being the one having the first gospel, referring back to Jesus as becoming God's son. And then we see in gospels that came later, Jesus becoming God's son after the baptism. You know, people will probably hate to admit it, so people may not like it, but it says in scripture that John was baptizing for sin. Jesus was baptized for sin. The doctrine of Jesus being perfect, I think that came after that. I mean, a lamb without spot, wrinkle, or blemish is one thing. That's different. But being a person without sin, or being required to have no sin, came later. So, I mean, basically that's what I'm saying. You know, he didn't receive the Holy Spirit initially. Like he matured into it, and the connection came. It's just like us, you know, not knowing who we are and then becoming known. Now I know that I am the Son of God. You know, it's that awareness, but there's a connection that literally comes, the two becoming one, the outside becoming the inside becoming the outside. That's what Jesus was talking about. The male becoming, you know, when there's no male or female, when there's only like God. So that's pretty much stated there too. Actually, John the Baptist was baptized in the Holy Spirit in the womb. He was the first person to be baptized in the Holy Spirit. That's why he was able to baptize Jesus. So that's definitely not something a lot of people like to admit. It sounds crazy when I even say it coming out of my mouth, because that's like new to me, but them's the facts. So but you can see what I'm talking about there. So that's like the same exact story, you know, becoming the father, maturing into that age, and then it happening, you know. So or making that connection. But look at this. This is the representation of the pineal gland. You see it here in ancient symbology, right? This is supposed to be this is an ancient god, basically. He has a pine cone in his hand. Why is he wearing a watch looking thing? This is actually one of the gods that was supposed to have been an advanced human from another galaxy or planet or something like that, that came here and started or helped start civilization. That's why civilization pops up out of nowhere. It's not gradual. It's just like this. Man stupid, then smart. You know, it's crazy. You can see it here on the Pope's thing, and the person above this is Jesus Christ, the pineal gland. Jesus was crucified on Golgotha, the place of the skull, the Christ consciousness, where Jesus must die and resurrect at the exact same time. The body that is supposed, because they believe that the pineal gland, right, with the two hemispheres, these are called Bennu birds or something like that. And you know, in Egyptian, these are, I think, Egyptian birds. That means something totally different. But I think that it's very crazy that this is also represented by Ben stone, and Ben in Hebrew means son, but it also means stone, which is a building block of a household. And these on two sides are two Ben, or I believe they call it the Ben stone or something like that, but these things on the two sides are Bennu, so it's like two sons, which is also interesting because there's something that talks about having two sons in I think God having two sons, which are the two witnesses, these two olive trees or something like that. So then the two sons also being, you know, like say Jesus and his twin, you know, Didymus, or the two looking in the mirror. It's the two cherubim as well in the Ark of the Covenant. We'll talk about that in a second. With this being the mercy seat, where God says, this is where I will meet you. This is where I will meet you face to face. At this place, the place that sees the dreams and the visions, or face to face, the place that you also that is also responsible for you being able to leave the body at night, the one that causes you to fall to sleep so that the body can separate, where you can see yourself face to face, where you realize that you are eternal. I mean, it all just links together. All just links together. This is the, and if I could get the big thing of this, I might be able to. Oh, by the way, this thing is at the Vatican, by the way. So let me see if I can get the full image, because there, see, this right here is like a dome. It goes up like this. Let me see, maybe it's the whole image. No, but this goes up like this. It's like a dome at the top, which is exactly what the Ben stones look like. So this thing is once again set inside the Ben stone with the Bennu birds on both sides. That's the Ark of the Covenant. Let me see, where is that? That's this, where God says he will meet Moses at the Ark of the Covenant, in between the wings. What did the hemispheres of the brains look like when you turn them to the side? Wings. What's in between? What's here is two underneath these wings. You can't see it right there for some reason. Some of them don't look like that, like for example here, but they're looking face to face. These two cherubim are face to face. This is the face to face realm. This is the place that's behind the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, behind the veil. When you go beyond the veil, that's what's back there. Remember, Moses' face is back there. Face to face. Gold. Mercy seat would be a mirror. So this is where, and it's also ironic that this is called the mercy seat, and the pineal gland is called they call it the seat of the soul. So you know, the mercy seat of the soul. And also look at this one. Let me show you here so you can see where this thing kind of is supposed to be at. And you can feel this, by the way. As a kid, I used to feel this and not know exactly what it was, but for me it's like right near the bridge of my nose. I can, if I'm like not touch my skin but right outside of it, I can feel this feeling. That's supposed to be, and I heard this in basically this shaman was telling one of his apprentices that, you know, that's where he says if you're in a dream and the dream is starting to fade but you want to stay in the dream, he said touch the roof of your mouth with your tongue. He says that's where the majority of man's attention is, which is funny because that's where I get that feeling at. That's where your third eye is supposed to be projecting through also, which is ironic because that's what this is supposed to be. This is the Kundalini spirit, or the Kundalini serpent, which sounds bad, I know, but this is what comes up and out of the forehead. That's what this represents, the pineal gland. Same thing as third eye in the forehead. That's what it's saying, that when it's activated, that's what happens. Now, what's crazy is the calcification, which is what happens to the pineal gland when the pineal gland is calcified. As a matter of fact, when the pineal gland is calcified, it shows up on x-rays like this. This is actually how they can tell if someone has a tumor, because it can be set off to the side, and that's how you know if there's a part in the brain that's growing. Oh, I never noticed that. Oh, wow. I never noticed that. Oh my goodness. Hold on. Okay, I'm just gonna say this real quick. And I mean, this only looks like that, but I can't say that that's what it is. But there's a coin that David Wilcock shows, and it's got like an eagle on the top. Well, this is actually a phoenix. It's supposed to be a phoenix, and it's sitting on the Bennu stone, which looks like a pyramid. You can see that there. I don't know if that's what they're trying to do with this image, but man, that looks just like it. And I'm gonna see if I can bring that up. I'm just going to do one search. I mean, it'll look, if you see it, you'll understand why. It looks just like it. Right there. See that there? This is the representation of an eagle, but it's pretty much a phoenix. It's supposed to be a phoenix. And here is the beetle, which is what Bethlehem comes from. This rock right here. Jesus is the rock. He is also Ben, the sun. Bethlehem, house of bread. You know, it's the exact same thing, where the bread comes from. So this stone is supposed to be the pineal gland, and look at that. It later becomes a pyramid. They make it into a pyramid, but look at that right there with that symbol. Let's see if I can get back to that other one. You see it there? Like that would be the eagle there, and that's looks like a pyramid, you know, with the eye in the middle. So this is what it is when it's calcified, pretty much. And some people say that this is the mark of the beast, because the lack of the use of this means that you're not doing self-reflection. And that's what is finding yourself. Knowing yourself is self-reflection. That's what beasts can't do. They don't have the access to use their consciousness to do self-reflection, to change themselves. We do. When, for example, when a beast goes to a mirror, it thinks it sees another person as opposed to itself. That's the exact same thing. That's the mark of the beast, when you're looking at scripture and you don't see yourself. That's what Paul is saying. When you're not seeing a mirror but a veil, you're a beast. You're not using this. God is not speaking to you through the wings of the cherubim. He's not speaking to you in the face-to-face realm. That's what he's saying. You're doomed. That's why famine falls upon you and you curse God for not telling you. He spoke to you and you didn't know. That's what it means in Revelations when it says they didn't repent after the wrath. You know, those who had the mark of the beast, they didn't repent because they didn't know to. They're still seeing two people. They're going to the mirror and thinking that it's another one of them. It's another person. Hey, there's another person in there. Seems like he's doing everything that I'm doing. And then one day the beast wakes up and says, oh wait, that's me. You know what I mean? That's the revelation. That's when the two become one. That's when the God who was on the outside comes into you. That's when you were baptized in the Jordan for your sin. And when you come out the Jordan, the Holy Spirit descends upon you as a dove. And God says, now this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. That's what's happening. It's the exact same thing. I think that's interesting. Now this thing gets calcified and does all types of damage. The calcification of this is potentially, let's say believed but not necessarily proven to be the cause of multiple sclerosis. One thing is for sure, it produces melatonin and serotonin, what makes you happy and what gives you dreams and sleep, or pretty much what God speaks through. Now the calcification of this literally becoming like a tooth in your head when it's supposed to be tissue, that can't be good, right? I'm pretty sure we can all agree on that if it's responsible for those two things, if man don't dream, man go crazy. And if man can't be happy, man is depressed. So at least those two things. Now what calcifies this, one of the causes is artificial foods with preservatives and fillers and stuff like that in it, and fluoride, which has no use in toothpaste. But this right here is the #1 receptor of it, because it's not inside the brain, it's not shielded from it, so it absorbs it. It absorbs it and calcifies. Minerals, those minerals, that's why they say you should drink distilled water, because distilled water actually demineralizes you. Now all those things that are left over from the crap that we eat and drink, like tap water or anything else that has fluoride in it, and anything else that is synthetic poisonous foods, those things calcify us. They do this, they break this stuff down. Also, distilled water helps us cleanse our kidneys, which also, that's where the stones gather at because of the crap that we eat. So, just think about that. This is, if you don't believe me in anything that I'm saying, just think about that. Theoretically, right? If this is where God speaks to us through, why this happens to every single person. This happens to the normal person. It calcifies because of our normal diet. The normal person doesn't know. We absorb the fluoride even in the spigot water when we take in showers. And I'm not telling you to go out there and change your life out of, all that kind of stuff, but you should at least be mindful of it. But just think about that. That's why these symbolisms are so powerful. That's what it means to them. That's why this is in the court at the Vatican. Look down here, that's a lion, like a Egyptian type lion. Why is that in the Vatican? This is supposed to be a Christian place. There's also obelisks in there, which the pyramid of the obelisk represents this. So look at that. And they have like glyphs written on the bottom right there. Just like a sphinx down there, that thing. Just think about that stuff. The Egyptians. Okay, so here we go. They're about to cover between the two cherubim that are over the Ark of the Testimony. This is the Ark of the Covenant. I will meet with you and will give you all my commandments for the Israelites. Look at this. Also, Israelites. That means to rule as God. Israel, to rule as God. And Israel as a nation was called God's son. Isn't that interesting? S-O-N. God's son was a nation. But those who rule as God are God's son. You understand what I'm saying? That's the correlation. But between the two cherubim that are over the Ark of the Testimony, I will meet with you. That's where he meets with you. That he's talking to Moses. That's because Moses was the one that went in there. Moses was the high priest. Moses took the Ark of the Covenant and he took his own tent and put it outside the camp, and that became the tabernacle. That became the tent of meeting. So Moses' tabernacle was the tent of meeting. You understand what I'm saying? And he was the one who wore the veil over his face. It says, but when it, oh my goodness, I forgot about that. But it says when he went in and spoke with God, he took the veil off. If I'm not mistaken, and he may have put it back on. So let me see. See, all this stuff is kind of occurring to me at the same time, so I want to check it to make sure. But I believe that it says when he went in, took the veil off. Gotta be more specific. The veil of Moses, but when Moses went before the Lord, he took the veil off until he came out. See, it says it right there. We can go to it then. All right. Just in case. Until Moses had done speaking, can't pass one down. Came out, skin, face shown, he talked with them, right? And Moses, Aaron, children saw Israel, behold, his skin on his face shone, and they were afraid to come nigh to him. Moses called to them, Aaron. And Moses talked with them. Afterward, children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them the commandments which the Lord gave. Okay, so they came afterwards. Until Moses had done speaking with them, he put the veil over his face. And when Moses went before the Lord to speak with him, he took off the veil. He took the veil off until he came out. And when he came out, he spake unto the children of Israel, which he had commanded. So basically, let's see. Paul is saying, oh wow, that is creepy. Ooh. Paul is saying that when Moses went in before the Lord, he took the veil off, received instruction face to face from him. But when he came out to talk to the Israelites, he put the veil back on and spoke to them through it. That was a veiled language. Oh man, that is banging. Okay, that's crazy. Oh wow. Alright, so back to the pineal gland. Let's check this out, because the pineal gland being that eye, that third eye, the eye of the spirit, the eye of that dimension, you know, the eye of dreams, imagination, daydreams, visions, all that kind of stuff, hallucinations, quote unquote. The eye being that, you know, it was what basically those ancient, what we would call shamans, right? Those who were the first people to ever encounter anything spiritual, any realm of spirituality. Those who were so quote unquote primitive that the only means that they had to communicate this was to draw it and put it on cave art, you know, but it's lasted the test of time. And not only has it lasted, but it's been, how do you say it, confirmed, basically, that there are similarities in the cave art around the world. So there's like a change where there's nothing, then there's kind of like a representation of regular life on cave art, and then there starts to become what is abstract on cave art. And that abstract is around the world. It's like people saw the exact same thing. You see what I mean? So these shamans were pretty much the first people to use this eye. They were the first people to kind of put down what they were seeing with their eye. You know, that's what art was at one point in time, was expression of what they saw in the spiritual realm. It was a way to make what was intangible tangible. It was the way to create a mark, you know, an Aleph Tav. So and then, you know, many people agreed that all of a sudden that seemed to disappear. But at one point in time, that could have been considered as being one language. People in different areas of the world seeing the exact same thing. That's one language. They're putting it down in a symbolic form or pictorial form or picture form or whatever, and pictograph, and other people from other places are doing the exact same thing so that they could all relate to these images. That's one language. and then all of a sudden it disappears. Then we start to get things like calcification of pineal glands, because they were seeing these things through the third eye. Where do you see art at? If you make music, where does it come from? If you paint, where does the inspiration come from? Where do you see it at? You know, where do your ideas lie? Before anything becomes tangible or hard, you know, where does it come from? The very thing that you're using right now was an idea in someone's mind, you know, the thing that you're hearing me through and all that kind of stuff. Even our creation, let us create man in our own image. It's, you know, it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. So just think about that. The pineal gland being that thing that it's a retina. It receives an image and then interprets it to the thing in the brain that allows us to see it. Just like the eyes, the retina in the eye does. It sees the image and translates it. That's what the third eye is supposed to be. And some people's are calcified, but people like Joseph can see it. You see what I mean? They see face to face. It's not calcified. There is no symbolism. There is no veil. He sees face to face. The Spirit of God is in him. The divine spirit. He has a divine spirit. You know, so hopefully you can see that there was a one language. And I don't think that it's ironic that, you know, look at the depictions of the Tower of Babel. Kind of looks like a pine cone. It's like the pineal gland. Remember, Elohim said man would be able to, okay, let's just go to that. See, I think I kind of understand what the problem would have been with that now. Okay. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. As people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen and mortar. And they said they were masons. You understand what he's saying? Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top to the heavens. Right? The stones. The stones are the sons. The stones, the pineal gland. These are masons. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its tops into the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Now that's the problem. That's the problem. A name for ourselves. That's the personality, the ego. That's the thing that's in the way. That's what's going to stop you every single time. The you, not the we. The collective whole. Lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. And the Lord, now I don't get that part. Lest we be dispersed over the whole earth. Scattered, separated. They want to make a tower to the earth. They want to make a name for themselves. Maybe they mean as a family. Could be. That's what it sounds like to me, making a record. Let us make a name for ourselves. Like a name, like a last name or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. Dispersed over the face of the earth, but it sounds like a personality. The Lord came down to the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, phone ringing. And the Lord said, behold, there are one people, and they have one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language. Now, look at this. Let us go down. But it said right here. And the Lord came down to the city and the tower. So I don't know what that means. So let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. So they made the tower. They didn't make the city. Therefore its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. That's why it's called Babel. Understand that. Not because of what they were doing. They weren't doing anything in confusion. They were on one accord. They were on more of one accord than humanity's probably ever been in this parable, because this isn't the original story. The original story happens differently. So they were on one accord, not in confusion. They were in confusion because of God. That says everything. You understand? They were in confusion because of God. Their interpretation. You see what I mean? That's what changed. That's what God changed. Then he gave it back on the day of Pentecost. See, something was different here. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe this is just a parable to teach us a story, to show us what happened, to show us what man has lost, to show us what we really fell from. But think about that. God is the confusion. You know, the beast goes to the mirror and sees another beast, doesn't see itself. Man is supposed to look in the mirror and see himself. Self-reflection, look in the word, see God, see himself. As long as you still see God, as long as the two are separated, as long as man is alone, it's bad, it's evil. So behold, there are one people, one language, right? So we already see that. I just wanted to point that out because I've been saying that so many times. But that's what I believe, you know, the Tower of Babel is, or what it was supposed to be, because now it's confusion. Nobody knows how to use themselves. It's amazing that this is potentially what they believe. Let me just tell you what they believe about this thing, that at night what happens is that inside of it, basically they know this, it has crystals inside of it, the exact same kind of crystals that tune into radio frequencies and radios. They're called I can't remember it. It has some type of crystals in it. Let me see if there's calciumite crystals. That's one that's in it. There's only one on there. It's some type of crystal that basically means you can see and hear from it. It's like the kind that allows signals to come in. Those are in our pineal gland, so it receives signals, right? That's one thing. That's why a lot of the times you feel like you hear that TV noise in your head. Bingo. Because a TV does exactly that. It's television. Tele from a distance. Vision. Basically, you're seeing one pic, because that's exactly what our minds do. We receive an electronic signal and it becomes an image that we see, you know, kind of like in the back of our brain. That's what a TV does, transmitting an image. That's what the pineal gland does. It receives signals. All right, it's able to make, well, they believe it's able to make light within itself, because I mean, it's just like a TV making those signals, right? Just like we see light, but literally no light ever gets into the brain. Only the signal of light gets into the brain. No light ever enters our brain. Our brain is completely dark. So where we actually interpret the world is in complete darkness. Complete darkness. We think we see light. Light never makes it into the part of our brain that actually sees. So, you know, what is it? What are we actually seeing? What's actually going on in there? So our pineal gland is the exact same. They believe that it's also affected by electromagnetic fields, but at night it is believed that because I haven't gotten to the part where they've shown the scientific study of this part, but this is what is commonly believed. This, and the majority of a lot of this stuff was pretty much said in religious texts and documents before science found these things out. That's the crazy part about it. They knew about this before we knew about this. That's where the language was lost. Now we're rediscovering it. So the pineal gland basically shuts off the electromagnetic field at night when you go to sleep. When people astral travel, when they leave their body, they actually can hear this thing firing up and buzzing in their head. Okay, so they can hear it when they can stay conscious. Some people wake up in this, they hear like a rushing, mighty rushing wind, right? That's one of the sounds. They also hear like rushing water, which also is synonymous to the voice of God. Rushing mighty wind, day of Pentecost. They also hear this buzzing, like this loud buzzing sound, which is the increase of their vibration. One of the things that would happen when angels would appear around people in the Old Testament, at least, they would start to shake or vibrate uncontrollably. They would fall on their face as if they were dead, be paralyzed. When you go into sleep paralysis at night, those are the two things that happen. You hear that buzzing sound and your body is paralyzed. It's crazy. They say you fall as dead. You know? So it's crazy. But and at those times is when angels usually are coming to them and giving them interpretations of visions that they previously had, or dreams that they previously had. So that's where God is speaking to them face to face. It's the exact same thing. Alright, so the pineal gland, they believe, shuts off the electromagnetic field, which basically shuts you off from time and space. It creates a wormhole within the mind, or within that I guess that area, and that's where they believe the soul dwells at. So the soul at night goes into different realms, the dream realms, the realms of creativity, where it can create its own surroundings, or into other dimensions where it seems so real, where you interpret other beings that communicate back with you, and yada yada yada. And sometimes, in some cases, you have a dream of being here on earth, in another city, in another state, you know, things like that. Sometimes you may see other planets and things like that. You just never know, because you literally go into a wormhole. Now, your you believe you're subconscious there, or that you're not conscious there, but there's a conscious you that you just don't remember. Just like you don't remember the you that came here, the you that existed before you were born. But lo and behold, you sure enough existed before you were born. But you don't remember that. Just like you don't remember most of your dreams. It's the exact same thing. But when you're awakened, you start to. So think about that. You know, it fires up, cuts off time and space, so that because time and space is here. You know, it's in this pretty much illusion of life. You know, in physical, I guess you could say as physical as you can say it is realm. So it cuts off time and space, and you are literally everywhere and nowhere. You know, at all time and at no time. So that's the kingdom inside of you. That's a never-ending void, like a black hole. It's like a never-ending void. You know, there is like nothing can escape that void. Like that's a wormhole. They believe that the pineal gland basically was a stargate, which makes sense because the body that houses our consciousness is considered the astral body. Astral meaning of the stars. All right. So think about this. That thing we saw earlier with the calcified pineal gland. Oh, it's not on here now, but yeah, that's David Wilcox right there. He was talking about it earlier, but he didn't mention this part, but it looks just like that. The pyramid with the thing there. Now, think about this. This is a phoenix. A phoenix is a bird of fire. If I'm not mistaken, it's like a bird of sun, I think. The astral body means of the stars. It's the body of stars. The phoenix dies in ashes and then resurrects. The astral body is cased inside of this body of dust that turns into ashes, and then the astral body ascends again. We never die. It's just like the phoenix. It's always believed that it's dead. You know, if you ever watch X-Men the cartoon, you know, you see when the phoenix, we thought Jean Grey had died and she didn't. The phoenix dies in ashes but then resurrects in fire again, or resurrects as the sun again, just like Horus, you know, the eye of Horus. It's the exact same thing. It's the sun that goes into darkness and then comes back up the next day. It's the exact same thing, in a sense. Now, what's crazy about that is every sun, pretty much, every sun has a black hole. That's us. That's our astral body. It's the pineal gland. Every astral body has a pineal gland that has a black hole. You see what I mean? That is a black hole in a time and space. If I'm not mistaken, every sun has a black hole. I have heard that. But yeah, you see, I hope you see the correlations that I'm making between the languages and all of this. Now let's go to Jesus. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. If your eyes are good, functional. But if your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. And if then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? So basically what he's saying, well, this is said in a different way. The word bad, well, it's supposed to be single. If your eye be single, that's good. But if your eye be basically not single, or double, or bad, or evil, the evil eye, then that's bad. And what's interesting is in Hebrew, there's two words, ayin. One mean, well, ayin basically means eye. The pictograph is an eye. But there's another ayin, which pictograph is a twisted rope. Twisted means wicked. Like, you know, like a candle is wicked. That part is wicked. It's twisted. Twisted string is wicked. That's what wicked means, twisted. So like the twisted eye is wicked. Now what's interesting is those who think that they see with the two eyes don't really see, because, you know, I've pretty much already said that we don't see, feel, hear, smell, taste, all that stuff. We don't do any of that. Actually, we just receive electronic signals. So we think that we are experiencing life outside of us when we aren't. That person is in deception. That person is as a beast. They don't use their pineal gland. They don't understand what it's about, so they don't see. Now those who use the pineal gland, their eye is single. That means that is the opposite of what he called evil, which meant doubled or folded, meaning veiled. When their eye is unveiled, then they see. Now what's interesting is this eye is only unveiled in darkness. Serotonin or melatonin is only created at night for us. You know, during those cycles, that's when we start to get ready to go to sleep. That eye, the eye that brings us into a reality that is more like the reality after this life than it is like this life, right? So that makes it more real than this life. The dream body, the dream, because we leave our bodies at night, the dream body, the dream life is more like the life after life, or after death, I guess I should say. What we call death. It's more like that. So imagine what you see, and people in that state, in that out-of-body state, can pass through walls. You see what I mean? They don't abide by the same laws as the physical body does. So tell me what reality is then. Because reality is supposed to be the laws of what you can and cannot do. If in the astral body I can pass through a wall and you can't, then what is reality and who's really deceived? So seeing with the two eyes, or what you think is seeing with the two eyes, receiving these electronic signals of what we perceive as reality, is different than seeing with the actual two eyes. The two eyes that people see with when they're out of their body, when they don't have visual eyes to see through, when they're clinically dead and all brain function has ceased and they can still see, hear, and feel and all those types of things. You know, when they're seeing with actual senses. So that's what he's saying. You know, when the eye is single, your body is full of light. Because think about it, no light gets into the brain, but the pineal gland has the ability to create its own light through its crystals. So they believe, also it's filled with water. The pineal gland is also filled with water. And that water is kind of what makes the whole thing work, which is interesting. Because it's interesting when you think about the implications of the fact that the movie Stargate is supposed to be based off the pineal gland. If you've ever seen the movie Stargate, there's a thing, you know, there's a circle and it does some type of stuff that makes it spin, and there's water inside and you can step through that water into a different dimension. And ironically, when they step into a different dimension, how come they end up in Egypt with aliens? You know, they tell us this stuff. This stuff is in plain sight. It really is. So they end up in Egypt with aliens, with this god named Marduk and stuff like that, which is supposed to be the one who passed down the very first religion, the first one who taught man, the one who was basically trying to, in a sense, enlighten man for his own benefit, according to what, you know, the mythology that I've come across says, trying to enlighten man for his own benefit. And that enlightenment is basically the use of the pineal gland, and that would have been counterproductive to the other gods of the pantheon, so that they came in and changed that basically by dividing man's language. Now that's just, nobody was actually there, but there are tablets that recount these stories. Tablets that are very, very, very old, predating biblical stuff. And talking about how, I guess, that God became Ra and things like that, and how these beings became gods and taught man civilization, agriculture, domesticating animals, and all that kind of stuff. Mathematics, astrology, and that's where it comes from. That's why our quote-unquote primitive ancients know things that science is just figuring out, knowing about stars and constellations and things about the stars and those constellations that they should not have been able to know because they can't see them with the naked eye. We couldn't see certain things until the 70s that we're now confirming that these African tribes already knew, that they said was taught by people who arrived from a different galaxy or a different solar system or a different star. People who arrived, and a certain star arrived in the sky when they arrived, and when they left, that star left too. Which is interesting because the birth of Jesus was preceded by a star as well, which is a sign of something. They're trying to show us a similarity, a correlation with things that have previously been correlated with the star showing up. So think about that. Women being inseminated through the Holy Spirit is not original either. That's happened before. And especially with it being based off of a culture of ancient societies, I don't want to say societies, ancient civilizations that we consider primitive, but believe that they were made through DNA manipulation. That's the exact same thing as saying, getting a woman pregnant without having a male there, because that's what they believe that their gods were doing. I mean, that stuff is crazy. We think that it's a game, but that is literal research and history that points this stuff out. Literal years, decades upon decades of history. Crazy. I'm gonna give you a prime example of how slow science is to get to mainstream. Look up a guy named Cleve Baxter, and look up. It's called Plant Consciousness. He shows you that plants are actually aware of our feelings. It's been proven they have a consciousness that reads our minds telepathically. It's been proven. They can recognize people. They can recognize intention. All those types of things. That has been proven years ago. And most people on Earth still don't know that's true. They just assume that. People like to sing to their plants, talk to their plants, but nobody even knows the science behind it. They just believe that this is possibly true. Plants are alive, and guess what? They feel pain. They feel pain too. Even bacteria feels pain. That's been proven through the same study, same person, Cleve Baxter. Everything feels pain. You should pray for your food. You should pray for your food before you kill it. Anything, any vegetable, any raw food that you have, even the bacteria in your food feels pain when you cook it, when you put it in the heat. That's what it seems they all fear, is that part, because it kills them. That's what the plants fear. That's what their consciousness fears. That's what they fear. The little shrimp, everything, that's what they fear. So you have to, almost in that way like they did on Avatar, let it know that it's about to be a process of sustaining life, and then it's okay. It accepts its role, and then it dies in peace. That's like kosher or halal, where they kill things in a different way. They kill it in peace so that it doesn't, I guess, try to fight for itself while dying, and then you ingest that. I don't know, but just think about that. What we say to things really does have an effect. I'll be talking about that also when we get to that faith portion, if I get there, the speaking portion. Okay, so the pineal gland. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying here, and I want to talk about this here. So just, you don't have to believe that this is what Jesus is saying or not, but know that he meditated. Meditation is that. Okay, it's always been that use of the third eye. Now this is Paul saying, I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up into the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. You see what he's saying here? He doesn't know whether he was having a vision or whether he had literally left his body and was in a different dimension, caught up into the third heaven. Was it in the mind? Was it in the body or out of the body? He doesn't know. He's not saying I was caught up bodily. He already said flesh and blood does not inherit the kingdom. So he's not, you see what I mean, messed up in the head about that, on whether he went there or not, in the body, or was it in the spirit. Just like, you know, Revelations 1:10, on the Lord's day I was in the spirit, I was in the spirit, I was in the spirit, I was in the spirit. There is more than one way to be in the spirit, but it also means an out-of-body experience. I was in the spirit, out of the body. That's why Paul's saying he was in the spirit, but he doesn't know whether it was in the body or out of the body. Man, it's like this stuff has been demonized, and these guys believed in it because they were Gnostics. They know that this is the way to become Christ. God speaks to his servants through dreams and visions. Now look at this, the snakes, right? The seraph. These were, what I wanted to point out was that they're called burning ones, okay? The seraphim, the burning ones. In Isaiah, these are around the throne, right? Seraphs, each had 6 wings. They got wings, 2 wings, they cover their face and feet. And they were flying around God's throne, around his head, saying, holy, holy, holy. So as a matter of fact, let's go here. Let's go to, okay, and they were calling to one another, holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. Remember at the beginning, it says the word creation means to fill. He was filling the earth with his glory. That's creation. And there's sounds of the voices as the doorposts and the threshold shook as the temple was filled with smoke. And he's seeing this, he's basically seeing this, this is Isaiah seeing this. And then the seraphim, I'm going to go ahead and paraphrase this. Then the seraphim come and cleanse him of his sin. And then he goes and takes the message, these people see and don't see, they hear and don't hear. That's what happens next. If we go to chapter 6, I'll just go ahead and go through it since we're here. So he says, in this year, basically, I saw the Lord sitting on the throne. Right? The Ark of the Covenant is also supposed to be the throne. The throne, the seat of the soul, is the throne in our mind. It's the exact same thing. Lofty and exalted, the train of his robe filled the temple. Seraphim stood above him. So above him are the seraphim. We're going to be talking about the seraphim in a second. And he talks about what they are. Remember, their faces are covered too with their wings. He says, they call to another one, holy, holy, holy. The foundation of the threshold. He says, woe is me, for I am ruined. Basically, I'm unclean because I am a man of unclean lips, language. And I'm living among a people of unclean language. Unclean language. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. He had a revelation. He's beyond the veil because he's seeing God on his throne. That's why he's like, woe is me, I'm ruined, I'm unclean, and I've seen God. He's supposed to die. That's what's getting ready to happen. He's about to become somebody else. Then one of the seraphim flew to me with one of the burning coals in his hand, right? The burning coals, which he had taken from the altar with tongues. This is talking about the temple in heaven, because the coals are in the temple. The temple is a representation of God's throne in heaven, in our mind. That's why we are the tabernacle. He touched my mouth with it and said, behold, this has touched your lips. Your iniquity, twisted seeing, evil eye is taken away, and your sin is forgiven. So his sins were forgiven in a different way, but it's the exact same way. His iniquity being taken away. What did Jesus call the people who did miracles but weren't grown up, or didn't have love, or were workers of lawlessness, or weren't known? I never knew you, you workers of iniquity. Okay, then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Then I said, here am I, send me. Good mercy me song. He said, go and tell this people, keep on listening, but do not perceive. So now this is his message. Now he's woke. Now he can see. Because his iniquity is gone. He's been cleansed. He's a new person. He's seen God. He's been beyond the veil, seen God, died, resurrected, and now he has a new message. Keep on listening, do not perceive. Keep on looking, do not understand. You understand, this is why Jesus said he spoke parables, so that this would happen. So before, it was a parable. Oh, let me tell you this too. This is the definition for it. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can bring this up. Okay. Hopefully it'll hopefully this definition will be in there. So this is the word mashal. This is the word parable. Okay, see, mashal, a proverb, a parable. A proverb, a parable, discourse, parables. Oh, there's another one. Proverb or parable in the sense of superiority and mental action. Let me see where that is showing up at, so you can see what I'm talking about. Apparently from mashal in some sense, this is talking about the other one. Apparently from mashal in some sense of superiority and mental action. Properly a pithy maximum, usually a metaphorical nature. Hence a simile, an adage, poem, discourse. Right. So let me see if this one will come up and what this one is, so you can see what I'm saying here. See, dominion, to rule, to have dominion. So it's talking about understanding the parables, or the person, because this is why they believe that. I was trying to bring up the ancient Hebrew definition from Jeffrey Branner, but he basically he points out that in Hebrew definition, if, for example, like Samson, he proposed a parable, right? And he says, if you can figure this out, then I'll give you such and such. I'll give you these robes or some clothing. And the parable, when he posed it and they didn't know the answer, what that meant was he had authority over them. He knew something that they didn't know. He created a veil or a wall of separation between them. Now, when they have the answer, then that's like creating a door to them. That's why Jesus is the door of life. And it's ironic that the letters that make up the letter Tav, which is the mark that we're arriving to, means, like those letters mean door in life. So Jesus is the door of life. You know, the answers are the door of life. That's why saying a riddle is also called a proposal. You have to have an answer to a proposal in order to become one with the person that's proposed to you. You know, proposing a riddle is the exact same thing. It's the same wordage. So that's how it all goes together, basically. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Now look at the seraphim, burning ones. Okay, these seraphim are burning ones. You see where they are and what they do. They bring cleansing. The bronze snake. Alright, so wait. No, I'm going to John first. This is Jesus talking about being reborn. How can a man be born when he is old? He cannot enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born. Can he? Jesus answered, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter to the kingdom of God. That's Genesis 1 right there. That's the Spirit of God over the waters. And then God said, let there be light. That's why we're the children of light, or God is the father of lights. That word hovering there means as a hen does over eggs. So what hatched was light. That's us. That's our spirit. That's our bodies. That's our light beings. That's us. So he's really just saying you have to recognize this. That which is born of flesh is flesh, and that which is born of spirit is spirit. That's talking about your eternal self versus your personality. Do not be amazed that I say unto you, you must be born again. You have to become a child again. You have to be born again. The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it, but do not know where it comes from and where it is going. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. You understand what he's saying? There's an ignorance there. You don't know where you come from or where you're going. There's an ignorance there. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. You're born of the flesh. You believe you were born in Philadelphia at this year, and the person can die this year, you know. But really, you don't know where you came from, and you don't know where you're going because you are not awake. That's why you have to be born again, awakened. That's why people who have near-death experiences, when they come back to life, they're like a new person. They've been born again. You know, and also you have to be born again in order to overcome those hurdles. So, here he says, and he's saying, how can these things be? And he says, basically he says, truly, truly, I say unto you, we speak of what we know and testify of what we have seen, and you do not accept our testimony. This is what he's saying himself, our. If I told you earthly things and you do not believe, how will you believe if I tell you heavenly things? No one has ascended into heaven but he who descended from heaven, the Son of Man. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, so that whoever believes will in him have eternal life. Basically, the whole point, Jesus is calling himself that serpent in the wilderness. Okay? That serpent in the wilderness. So, that serpent here, they traveled to the mountain of Hor along the route of the Red Sea to go around Edom, but the people grew impatient on the way. They spoke against God and against Moses and said, why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? They want to go back. See, these people don't want to endure to the promised land. They don't want to endure to what was promised if they just endure. They want to go back to Egypt where they were slaves. They want to go back to monotony and routine where they didn't have to think, where the body worked for them, where those who were in the know, because the Egyptians were in the know, when those who were in the know lorded over them and made them build their kingdom, when they thought God was outside. Okay, so wilderness also, if I'm not mistaken, one of the Greek applications for the word wilderness, and I believe it may come from the Hebrew, well, I'm sure it does come from the Hebrew, is the place where the husband withdraws himself from his wife. That's why the wilderness is a place of test. For example, it's raining like crazy outside right now. For example, let's see. Jesus receives the Holy Spirit. God calls him his son, and then he goes into the wilderness where he is tested for 40 days. It says that the Holy Spirit drives him into the wilderness to be tested of the devil. So the spirit that is now within him, no longer without, because it's easy. That's the reason why they would make idols, you know, because it was easier. You know, Moses was gone, so they made a calf. They needed something to see. So it's easy when you have something to see, when the God is outside of you, but when God is on the inside, it's hard. That's self-gnosis. That's what Jesus is talking about, being known, knowing the God within personally and intimately, so that you are known and that you know who you are. So, man, that rain is kind of distracting, but it sounds so awesome. But so that's funny. But the wilderness is that place where basically, I mean, think about it. At the end of what we see in the story of Jesus being tested in the wilderness is Satan saying, if you are who you say you are, or who they say you are, prove it. So, you know, it's that whole back-to-back thing of, if God is in you, if you know, if you're really married to this God who has withdrawn himself from you in this wilderness, prove it. Nothing around you looks like it. Prove it. If you're Israel, prove it. If God loves you so much and saved you from Egypt to go into the promised land, prove it, because nothing around you looks like it. The wilderness was a place where the husband withdrew from the wife. She had to realize what was in her. The bride has to realize what's in her. Right? So there is no bread. So they don't see what's in them. they talking about the manna. There is no bread. Well, I believe this is this is Numbers. By now they should be been receiving manna. So let me just check, because if I'm not mistaken, manna came in Exodus. So by now they should be receiving manna. Just want to make sure. Manna and quail. Yeah, they had the quail first and they were all sick. And then after that it was manna. So yeah, they're saying that there's no bread, there's no water, and we detest this miserable food, talking about the manna. So yeah, and that manna, understand that is the word of God. That is why God was giving them manna. It was supposed to be the word of God. Alright. They went out to get a quota of the word. Right? Check this out. A quota of the word. Every day they had to go out and get their quota, or their ratio, their ration. That word ration means word. It is the glory of God to conceal a word. This is the same exact word. They had to go out and get their debar. It is the glory of God to conceal a debar. To search out a matter, or to search out a debar, is the glory of kings, those who rule with authority. Remember, parable, mashal, authority, it's the exact same thing. Joseph understood the parables, the symbolisms. He ruled to be he rose to be a king. Those who understood the symbolisms had authority. It is the glory of God to conceal a debar, the manna that Jesus says is hidden manna. Hidden manna. Those who overcome, I give the hidden manna. Those who make it to the mark at the end, who make it through the door of life, who have the answer, I give hidden manna. They have to persevere through the outward circumstances that don't look like the inward manifestation or reality. They have to wait until their faith actualizes and they bend reality into the inward reality. You have to stay until that point. Everything around us is an electronic signal that can be bent. Remember, it can be bent. It can be changed. That's what faith is. When you start to be something different on the inside, you have a different, I want to say, waveform, a different waveform. So you then start to attract different things, attract and repel different things. You start to literally shape the life around you differently, because it has to fall in line with your inner reality. That's why Jesus says the kingdom is inside of you and outside of you. He says those who seek, when they find, they will be ruler over the all. You only rule if you are on the seat of the kingdom, or if the kingdom seat has the one, the true ruler on it. So it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, a debar, manna. The ratio of manna that you go and get every day is concealed. You are concealed. To search out that is the glory of kings. Paul says we're changed into the what that we see? The glory that we see. The glory of God is concealed, but kings search it out and become like God. They become Israel, those who rule as God. It's amazing. That stuff is amazing. But Jesus called himself a seraph. He called himself this serpent. Where was that at? Okay, so yeah, they're speaking against God. So basically the Lord sent venomous snakes amongst them. Venomous snakes amongst them. They bit the people, and many Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, we sinned when we spoke against the Lord. Oh, we misunderstood. And against you, pray that the Lord will take the snakes away from us. So Moses prayed for the people. The Lord said to Moses, make a snake, a seraph. That's what this word is. And put it on a pole. This is who Jesus is talking about. This is what he's comparing himself to. This is a parable of the Christ. Make a snake. This is Jesus being lifted up, dying on the pole. Make a snake and put it on a pole. Anyone who is bitten by venomous snakes, the opposite snake, right? Satan is supposed to be a serpent, a fiery serpent. A seraph is one of many seraphim. Seraphim are flying snakes. What's a dragon? A flying snake. Venomous snake. The accuser of the brethren. The accuser is Satan. The accuser, the one who points the finger, while Christ is the one who redeems. That's where separation comes from. That judgment pointing the finger as opposed. Jesus didn't do that. The only person that he pointed the finger at were the finger pointers, while those who needed, he never withheld himself from, no matter who or what they had done. He gave it to them, then said, go and sin no more. What that means is he gave them fulfillment. He gave them what they needed and said, go and sin no more. Go and misunderstand no more unless a greater thing fall upon you. That's those who turn back. But what he said, what's being shown there is every time he quote unquote healed someone, he gave them correct understanding. He removed their sin and told them, go and sin no more. The right snake as opposed to the venomous snakes. Who were the venomous snakes? Jesus called the Pharisees a brood of vipers. Vipers are venomous snakes. He called them venomous snakes. He said that you have the keys of knowledge, but you don't enter in the door, and those who want to get in, you keep them out as well. So you think you know something, but you're not even going through the door of life. You got the keys to it, right? But you can't even get in. And those who want to get in, you keep them out through your false interpretation. That's venomous snakes. Make a snake, and that's what people get when they curse God. When they detest the food. See, we sinned and spoke against the Lord, and you put on the pole. Anyone that's bitten can look at it and live. Can look at it and live. Can see it and live. Revelation. So Moses made a bronze snake, fiery serpent, a seraph, put it on a pole. Remember, the seraph does what? Takes the coal, cleanses your lips, cleanses your sin, takes away your iniquity, and then you go out with the message of being awakened. So Moses makes a bronze snake, puts it on a pole, and that's what Jesus said that, that's what Jesus was comparing himself to, a seraphim. Because remember this is the seraph right here, but there's also seraphim in Isaiah, so these stories, would have coincided. Jesus is saying he was both of those, coming to take away the sins of man. That's why he says, I didn't come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. That word fulfill is a Jewish idiom for to correctly teach. Then when anyone was bitten by a snake and looked at the bronze snake, they lived. Alright, so what do we see around the pineal gland? We saw the serpents, remember, coiled around it, going up to the, let's see if I can find a... what did I say? In history? Oh, symbolism. That's probably what it was that I typed in. Yeah, but still you see it there. The two snakes going around it. Ben, or the two sons, the two serpents, whatever. However you want to call it. The DNA, all that kind of stuff. That's what the same exact thing. The coiled serpents. Oh, there you go. Remember I was saying that's the Ben stone? Or the something like that. That stone is shaped just like this, which is also another representation of the pineal gland. And we see here it's supposed to be a representation of the pineal gland as well. Alright, so we see the seraph, the serpents, the burning ones, basically that teach us the symbolisms or cleanse us of our sin, right? Make us to see correctly, remove our iniquity, and have us be forgiven of our understanding, our misunderstanding. Pineal gland being basically a representation of the Ark of the Covenant here as well. And not that there never was a literal, I can't say that there wasn't, but I know that no literal representation or physical representation that will ever be greater than the actual being. Everything here outside of us is for us. Nothing is greater than that. Okay, so and check this out. So he says, go and tell these people this, right? Render the hearts of this people insensitive, meaning dull. So he's basically saying by making them, give them what they really want. Give them falseness, give them parables, and let them eat that up so that they grow accustomed to not seeing. Their ears are dull and their eyes dim. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and return and be healed. That word return is repent and be healed, be made whole. That's what Jesus said. He says, I speak in parables so that they don't get the mysteries, lest they hear, lest they see, lest they understand, and they would turn, and I would forgive them. It's the exact same thing, the exact same story. Then I said, Lord, how long? And he answered, until cities are devastated, and without inhabited houses, and without people, and the land is utterly desolate. Do it until everyone's gone. The Lord has removed men far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. Yet there will be a 10th portion, a remnant in it, and it will again be subject to burning, like a terebinth or an oak whose stump remains when it felleth. The holy seed is its stump, basically what remains after it's cut down. So when the truth comes, just like Jesus said, there's a fire in the earth, and I've come to kindle that fire to make it burn hotter. Think that I've come to bring peace? No, I've come to bring a sword. I've come to bring a separation. In the beginning, there was darkness, formlessness. Then God said, let there be light. Formlessness is chaos. There isn't a structure. Light, that word light in the Hebrew actually means order. It actually means structure. So light, you can see in light, you understand in light. In darkness, you can't. In darkness, it can be anything. And it has even greater implications when we start talking about what actually makes up the universe and how it reacts to darkness and light. Light actually makes order. Well, let me just continue. So light is order. God was making a separation there. Then it says God made a separation between the light and the darkness. That was a judgment, a distinction. That's what the sword comes to do. When you wake people up, you make a distinction between reality and what is not real, between light and darkness, between being awake and being asleep. You make a distinction. That's what Jesus came to do. That's what he's saying here. When all of this stuff is destroyed, the distinction brings this destruction. But there's always a remnant left. See, a remnant of awakened people. For example, you know, the symbolic Noah and his family being the ones who are in the know, knowing about the rain coming, knowing when to get in the ark, knowing when to close the door, you know, all those types of things, knowing when to have the ark finished by, knowing, having the schematics for the ark, having this hidden knowledge that nobody else had, so that they were prepared for what was coming on the earth. Just like Pharaoh had the dream, but he needed a Joseph. Joseph, knowing how to interpret the symbolisms, knowing God's voice, seeing God's face, is able to interpret the symbolism, so he knows what's getting ready to happen on the earth. For example, I just be knowing parts of stuff. Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan. This is, let me go down to the King James Version so you can see why I was so excited at first. Surely the Lord God will do nothing but he revealeth his secrets unto his servants the prophets. So that's what he's saying. Surely the Lord God does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants the prophets. That's what the secrets are. That's why, you know, that's why God was trying to speak. That's why he was trying to talk to Pharaoh. He was trying to tell him what was getting ready to happen, because he doesn't do anything without telling him what's getting ready to happen. We get to know what's going to happen on the earth. It is not a secret. Now let's look at this word secret in the Hebrew. Sod, right? It means counsel. Now this is in my opinion, oh no, this is pretty good. So you get to see the translations for it. This is what it's used as an application. So counsel or counsel, either one of these is the same thing. One of these is advice. The other one is a group of people. So this word sod is the word secret, but it means advice or a group of people. See, look, in the King James, it's telling you where it's used at: secret, the secret counsel, the secret, see the secret counsel. So it's a circle or a company, consultation, council, a fellowship, friendship, gathering. It's intimate, you know, it's talking about planned secret or a secret council. It's a secret council who talk about secrets, who talk about intimate things. When you are in that council, you get to talk with God about what he's doing in the earth. You get to co-create with him. You are his son. You get to talk about what's going on in the kingdom. You are a part of what's being released, and you already are. Think about it. The ills, Jesus says that, a good man can't bring forth bad treasures or bad fruit. A good tree can't bring forth bad fruit. A good man can't bring forth evil treasures, but an evil man can't bring forth good treasures. So all the evil in the world is coming out of people. It's coming out of people. It's coming out of us. The good in the world is coming out of people, coming out of us. It's coming out of us and affecting the world. So we are already co-creating with God. We just don't know it. When we realize it, then we can actually figure out, okay, well, now that I know this, let me listen to what God is saying to figure out what the actual plan or purpose is. What should I be releasing into the earth? What should I be creating with? And then things change. Things are different then. Okay, so that's the word secret. So think about that. It's talking about a group of people, and it's also talking about advice. So those are the secrets. That's what's hidden. The group of people and the advice. That's what God says to his servants. Just like showing in the vision what John saw in the vision, or what Pharaoh saw in the dream. Okay. So that may actually be it. So okay, so the secret things belong to the Lord. I'll probably conclude with this, I think. Man being a parable of God, and then talking about ruling the tongue. Okay, we've talked about, okay, yep, so this is about it. I'll go ahead and close that too. So Deuteronomy 29:29. The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may follow all the words of this law. So you understand what he's saying? The secret things being revealed is how we follow the law. That's what Paul was talking about when he's saying when the veil is removed, we become like what we see in the law. Remember, he says, to this day, in the reading of Moses, that same veil lies over their hearts, their understanding. So when we, with unveiled face, behold as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, we're changed into that same image from glory to glory. That's what this is saying. The secret things belong to the Lord, but when they're revealed, they belong to us and our children forever, that we may follow the words of the law. So we follow the words of the law through the secret things being revealed. The secret things is us. The image of who we are to be and what we are to be, understanding that, the gnosis, the self-gnosis, understanding the God within, knowing how to communicate with that God, how to know what he's saying and what he desires. That's the secret things. That's how we follow the law. That's how we become who we are to be. Think about this. The two oxen in the yoke, the Torah itself was considered a yoke. It was God's marriage contract with the Israelites. It was a yoke. The Torah was the yoke. Okay, so Moses, the book of Moses, was the yoke. Which is interesting, man, because that's why they call the Torah Moses, and Moses had the veil on his face. That's interesting. Like, he really was the word, but he really was the law embodied. So I kind of lost track, but basically, the law being the nature that we are to be, right? That comes through the word being written in our hearts, becoming that self-gnosis, knowing who we are to be. What is the law? What is the nature? There we go. So the two oxen in the yoke. So the yoke is, the marriage contract. It is the law. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight this right here. This is the yoke. That's why Jesus says, take my yoke, take my law, learn of me, take my nature, take my do not do this and do this. Take my, this is what good is and this is what evil is. Take my, this is what you are to be and this is what's hindering you from being there. That's what the law is. So, love yourself and love your neighbor. That's what the law is. Love yourself as God. Recognize that you are God, then love yourself as God, and love your neighbor as God. That's what the law is. So, through this revelation, or through this, okay, so the two oxen are in the yoke. One ox is older and more experienced. Remember, gnosis, experience, has more knowledge. You, a younger ox, are with El. Remember? El, Aleph, Lamed, ox, yoke. You are the other ox that joins to El. So you in this yoke don't know what this other ox knows, but guess what? The other ox is going to the exact same place that you are, to the mark, to the finishing point, to the door of life, to the end, to the revelation. Is going to the exact same place. You don't know where you're going, but if you can become one with this thing, well, technically you really are one with it, but there's a part of you ruling you and it's hindering you, but the lessons are still helping you. So me too. I've already said that. Me too. I'm just as hindered. This is just the beginning of my quest. So basically the ox are in a yoke, and you guys are on the exact same team. That's what it's called, a team of oxen. You're on the exact same team. You're headed to the exact same place. You may not know it yet. You might not even be aware of the older ox. You're not even aware of your purpose or what you're supposed to be doing. Right now, you're untrained. The other ox, in a way, has been broken. But it's not broken. It just understands the process. You know, it's tamed. Just like a garden is tamed earth. What you want to grow there grows. The seeds that you plant, they grow. And there's nothing else there that hinders their growth. That's what the older ox is. Now, it's older and stronger than you, though. So you can't pull away from it. You think you can go over there, but you really can't. You're trying and you're pulling and you're pulling and you're pulling, and this older ox can just sit there. And because it's so much older, it has so much more experience. It used to be a younger ox to an older ox being pulled and learning its lesson. It sits there and it can just sit there while you struggle and pull against it. And that's what Jesus says to Paul when he kicks Paul off his horse. He says it's hard to kick against the goads. That's what an ox gets. A goad is what they call now a cattle prod. It used to be when an ox wasn't moving or when it wasn't doing the right thing, you would jab it with this goad and it would try to kick against it, but no matter what it could do, it would still hurt. It's hard to kick against the goads. He was calling Paul an ox. So you see it again, that the word, basically it's the exact same thing. But so think about this. It's the law. You two are in that union together, and the two need to become one. His nature needs to become your nature. That's why he's saying, take my yoke and learn of me. Watch how I do it, and then you can do it. That's why it's about revelation, seeing and then doing. Jesus says, I do nothing except what I see the Father in heaven do. I don't say anything except what I hear the Father say. It's the exact same thing. It's revelation. As we see him, we shall be as he is. When we see how God works, when we understand nature, that's why Pythagoras says, man, know thyself and thou shalt know the universe and God. It's the exact same thing. As above, so below. The patterns are there. We are the parable of God. So if we know ourselves, then we'll know the universe as above, and we'll know God. It's the exact same thing. I mean, it's very interesting, man, but it's the truth. And that's the law, getting to that place at the end. And just think about this. You aren't perfect as an inexperienced ox. You aren't perfect. But guess what? As long as you are moving with the ox, you're perfect. You're right where you're supposed to be. You don't just go from A straight to Z. I mean, maybe you can. But either way, there's a Aleph and a Tav. There's a beginning and an end. So, teleological. That's why God says, I call those things that are not as though they are. I call the end from the beginning. Because with teleological, we need to have a mark first. That's why God gave Joseph a dream that he would rule. He didn't tell him how. He didn't tell him the in-between. He didn't tell him the hardships. He didn't say your brothers are going to betray you. But he told him that he would rule. And that his brothers would bow to him. His brothers and his father would bow to him. And that's what happened. The beginning from the end. And look at how he gave it to him in a dream. Now check this out. If anyone considers some, I want to read this, and I'm gonna finish with this last thing. This may be a segue into something else, so this may be the end of it all. I don't know. James Bond, check it out. James, a bond servant of God in the Lord Jesus Christ to the 12 tribes. He says, consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. How is your faith tested? Oh, guess we got to go to faith. I guess I could have just put Hebrews 11:1, right? That's actually one that I know, and I wanted to type out that whole scripture. That's funny. All right, so now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. That is so fluffy. I don't like that one at all. I like the actual one better because the definitions are actually what bring it to life. But let me look at the King James one. You know, that good old original copy. So faith is the substance of things hoped for. The substance. This word substance means what has actual existence. Faith has actual existence of things hoped for, right? The evidence of things not seen. Faith means conviction. You get convictions through evidence, meaning things that are tangible, that can be seen, things that are real. It's evidence of something not seen, so that means faith has to be seen. Faith is evidence of something not seen, so that means faith is seen. Faith is a revelation. See, it's not just even just a revelation, because that can be intangible. Faith is an image held in the mind. It's a reality held within that is actualized later without. That's why God says he shows us the beginning, and he shows us the end from the beginning. The end starts the beginning. The end starts the clock. For example, having a destination is what makes you take the first step. If you have nowhere to go, you usually go nowhere. But when you have somewhere to go, then you have a beginning, but you start with the destination in mind first. Just like, you know, when a plowsman is plowing his field, he starts with the mark in mind. He sets the mark first and then he plows to it. It's the exact same thing. Faith is that mark held within. It is evidence of the mark not seen around you. It is actual. It has actual existence of the thing hoped for. It is because later on, I believe it's John says that we don't hope for what we have. You know, when hope is actualized, like hope is basically, we don't hope for what we have, pretty much. So the thing that is this substance is faith. That's when you're convinced. That's when you no longer hope and you know. That's what I think he said, something like that, like hope that has arrived is faith, or something like that. See, faith is the substance of the things that you hope for when it has actually arrived. Hope has no evidence, but when evidence arrives, hope has transformed into faith. That's what he's saying. Whew. Okay. All right. So that's what faith is. That's and when I realized that, I'm like, oh my goodness, faith is an organ. It's a sense. That's what the pineal gland does. Faith is the pineal gland allows us to have imagination so that we can see reality that hasn't happened yet. It allows us to dream so that we can experience a reality that, you know, we can't manifest like that here, but we can manifest it like that in dreams and in imagination. We can see it over and over and over again. It can give us an emotional response. We can see it so many times that it can be real to us, that it can be a memory. Have you ever done that? For example, let's do that right now. Please participate with me. This is going to be really, really quick. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do it this way. Remember the yellow house that I told you to see? Recall that now. I'm recalling mine. Remember the chimney with the smoke, the red shutters, the red door with the gold knob, yellow house. Remember that? You can recall that as if it's a memory, but it was in your imagination. You understand what I'm saying? Everything that you every memory that you recall is an imagination. It's not an actuality. Every memory is an imagination. It's a remembering of an actual event that you experienced. That was just as intangible, really, just as fleeting as a moment. All right, so get that. Faith is an organ. Faith is a sense. It's a perception. It's a way of perceiving life, as opposed to, that's why Paul says, we walk by faith, not by sight. Faith is a type of sight. That's what he's saying here. Faith is the evidence of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's a type of sight. It's an evidence of the spiritual realm. It's the evidence of the realm that other people can't see. It's the rain that's coming for Noah that people can't see. It's the I don't know. It's the when you can see something coming and nobody else around you can see it. When you know who you are and nobody else can see it because the circumstances in your life don't line up to it. It's the exact same thing. Faith is the organ of sight that allows you to see what has not yet actualized for those who don't have faith. Pretty much. That's how it is. Okay. Yeah, let's just say that this realm is the concrete realm and faith is the realm of abstract. But faith is concrete. It's more concrete than the realm of concrete, because the realm of concrete is actually pliable and it is movable. That's what pliable means. It's like clay. This realm is clay, and our faith is what molds it. We are the potter, so it seems concrete, but no, this is like when concrete has set. But before concrete has set, you can do whatever you want to do with it. That's all it is. So the potter's will, I guess you would say, or where the concrete is mixed, is in the mind. That's where you sculpt what you want, and then it actualizes here. That's faith. That's what that organ of sight is. Okay, so I want to just go to the part where he talks about the tongue now. I don't know how to spell tongue. Okay, if any, hold up. All right, so if anyone thinks himself to be religious, okay, this brethren, my beloved, but if anyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Anger man does not achieve the righteousness of God, therefore putting aside all filthiness and all remains of wickedness, twistedness, and humility receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls, right? But prove yourselves doers. Oh no, this isn't the one. I should just use this part. Everybody knows this part. That's the one. The tongue is a fire. Okay. Because we need to realize this. This is very, very cliche, right? The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Okay? Eat its fruit. Those who love it will eat its fruit. The fruit of righteousness is a tree of life. She is a tree of life for those who embrace her. I think it's something that says tongue too, the tree of life. The tongue that brings healing. The tongue that brings healing is a tree of life. See, the tongue is a tree, brings forth fruit, but a deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. So that goes right with there's the power of life and death in the tongue, right? Let's go here. So start at chapter 3. Wrap up with this. Let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, knowing that as such will incur a stricter judgment, for we all stumble in many ways. Which this is very, very interesting, because that study that I saw earlier, that was talking about the past life regression, this one is actually talking about the life in between life. It's talking about the process of basically debriefing and getting ready to go into a new life if you so choose to. So that is some crazy science, man, but that is science. That is, tested science. So basically what they say is, man, some of these people have gone back to lives where they were slaves, slave owners. Some people have gone back to lives where they were in the Holocaust, some people have been soldiers and things like that. And in each case, those who were victims, when they go through the whole life after life part, when they've died and they're going through the debriefing part, you know, when they're meeting back up with people they have experienced in life, they realize that the parties have agreed to go through what they went through. Not, you know, not saying that it's, well, basically, just understand what I'm saying, that they, basically, this is what they're saying. This is what their research has shown. And it's harder for the party, it's harder on the person's soul that actually did the offending than the person who was offended. So it's bad, it's worse for the person, the slave owners. It's you know, they have a tougher role to play. That's a more mature part to play. Let not many of you become teachers. That's what you see what I'm saying. Many brethren, my brethren, knowing that such will incur a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he's a perfect man. What he says, controlling his mouth, his tongue, able to bridle the whole body as well. Control the whole body. That word bridle was talking about what you put, what you use to control a horse, which way a horse's head will go. The word prince in the Hebrew is sar, which means one who turns the head. One who has authority can turn the head. It says that the prince is a man who is basically one who can turn the heads of many. He has authority. So basically, look what this is saying. Oh, okay, yeah, it's saying right there, he can bridle his whole body through his mouth. Now, if we put the bits into the horse's mouth so that they will obey us, we direct their entire body as well. Look at the ships also, though they are so great and are driven by strong winds, are still directed by a very small rudder, wherever the inclination of the pilot desires. So also the tongue is a small part of the body, and yet it boasts of great things. See how great a forest it set aflame by such a small fire, and the tongue is a fire, the very world of iniquity. Iniquity, twisted seeing. When you see twisted, you speak twisted. The tongue is set among our members. What did they get? New. Oh my goodness, I just noticed that. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh wow. That's crazy. Oh snap. Let me do it. Man. Oh my goodness. And suddenly a sound like a blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house. Filling the house. That's creation. Remember? Filling, bara. Filling. The whole house where they were sitting when they were on one accord. Remember that. They saw, let's just go to chapter 2 verse 1. When the day of Pentecost had come, fully come actually is what it says, they were all together in one place. And suddenly there came from heaven, this all together in one place actually means being one accord. And suddenly there came from heaven a noise like a violent rushing wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting, and there appeared to them tongues. Understand that what it's saying. And there appeared to them tongues as of fire, distributing themselves, languages distributing themselves, languages of fire, and they rested on each one of them, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. Now check this out. So that's what he's saying here. He's saying that see how great a forest is set aflame, saying that the tongue is a fire. The tongue is a fire. That's crazy. World of iniquity when it's wrong. But they were getting a new language. The tongue is set among our members as that which defiles the entire body and sets on fire the course of life. Isn't that something? By the way, this word rushing mighty wind also means breath of life. They receive the breath of life. It's fire. And it's funny how the word, I believe it's mouth in Hebrew, when it says that God breathed into Adam, one of those, it actually also means to blow on a fire, like to kindle a fire. So, man, and it is set on fire by hell. For every species of bird and reptiles, creature is tamed and has been tamed by the human race, but no one can tame the tongue. It is the restless evil, full of deadly poison, which it blessed the Lord Father, and with it we curse man who is made in the likeness of God. For the same mouth came both blessings and curses. My brethren, these things ought not to be this way. Does a fountain send out from the same opening both fresh and bitter water? Can a fig tree, brethren, produce olives, and a vine produce figs? Nor can salt water produce fresh. So he talks about the power of the tongue, bringing life and death. Now, I'm going to say one last thing. This is an experiment that I've personally conducted. This is called the rice experiment. I've personally conducted this myself, and I've conducted this with at least 7 or 8 other people have seen this, the results from this. They actually participated. So you get some rice, you boil it. Basically, it's supposed to be the water that reacts, but you get some rice, you boil it, and you put some in a container, in 2 different containers. One basically says a positive statement, one says a negative statement. Every day for 30 days you speak to the rice. One you say I hate you, one you say I love you, or one you fool, or thank you, whatever it is. You speak to the rice, and the rice basically what happens is the I hate you rice starts to mold, while the positive rice doesn't. It doesn't mold. I mean, you probably can't eat it. Well, you sure can't eat it, I'm pretty sure. But the negative rice starts to mold. It shows the power of intention, and the power of our words, and the power that our words have on things. Now, think about this. That we're 70% water. It's the water that takes this effect. So imagine what the power of our words has on us. That's why he says it defiles the body. It also controls the body, because the state of your vibration, your emotional state, it resonates in the water that's in your body. The water has like a memory, and it can sense the intention, your intention. Now think about this. The mold on the rice showed up around 7 days after we started talking to it. Like the very first mold started to show up visibly within 7 days. Get this, for the first 6 days, right, nothing was visible. Now imagine this, but for 6 days we spoke to the rice. We said I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. We spoke to the rice for 6 days. Think about that. For 6 days we spoke to the rice and saw nothing. And then on the 7th day, I'm not saying that on the 7th day, but on the 7th day something appeared. It didn't just appear on the 7th day. It was being created on the 6 days prior, when words were being spoken to it. Just because you couldn't see it doesn't mean that it wasn't being manifested. On a molecular level, on a non-seeing to the eye level, it was being created. Mold was being created as we spoke, while on the other hand, mold was being prevented as we spoke. That's faith. Creating. We created that mold with what we said, and we created the opposite of it as we spoke on the other hand. Creating. That's what I wanted. That's the point. Like, that's the power of our language. And it's not by coincidence that everything that exists is in a constant state of motion, or vibration, or is a sound. And our words are also sound. But guess what? Our words emanate from thoughts that come from within us. We can be a source of change, a catalyst, I guess you could say. We can be what is introduced into this environment that changes the environment. For example, music can change the mood of a place. Your words are that music that changes the mood of a place. For example, if you play a slow song in the club, everybody wants to slow dance. If you play a party song in the club, everybody wants to dance to the party song. If you play a song that is depressing, nobody wants to be in a club dancing. If you play a gospel song in the club, nobody feels right dancing. It changes the mood. If you play a party song in church, people get offended. You know what I mean? If you play Music with cussing in school, people are like, why is this? But if you play nursery rhymes in school, people understand it. Play nursery rhymes in the club, people don't like it. Play music with cussing in the club, people fall, you know, they love it. They love it. So it's different. Music creates atmospheres and environments. It changes the vibration of the place where you are. High bass, which, well, basically low bass, is like low vibration. You know, it's kind of like almost the darkness of sound, in a sense. I'm not saying that bass is bad, but bass is for war. You know, they use the bass drums for war and stuff like that. Bass is that's what that sound is for. That's why you know, when you hear music with a lot of bass in it, they're usually talking about base things. Base things meaning things that are fleshly, sex, drugs, money, you know, killing. It's base things. But things that are high in treble, that music is usually more positive, has a different feeling to it. It's a little more uplifting. For example, classical music is usually mostly treble. It's very high in treble and instruments that cause vibration in a higher scale. So is love music for the most part. Now, not rhythm and blues love music, but love music, you know, real love music and inspirational music always has that high, light feeling to it, because light is a sound too. It's at a very, 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 very high vibration. Not the highest, but a very high vibration. Light is a sound too. So is darkness. So remember that when you're talking about your words, when you have your thoughts. Oh, also, I think this will actually be the end of what I'm calling my gospel. I mean, you know, there's much more to show when it comes to other stuff, but I'm going to do that in separate videos. But I think this would be a good place to end. Basically kind of sum up what I believe and why I'll be showing and demonstrating some other stuff after this. Alright, so basically the last thing that I want to say, as far as I guess that talking creation thing, I think I may have forgotten. So what was I just saying? I was talking about, let's see, creation, how we created that right so we couldn't see it. Talking about the sound, changing the atmosphere, the vibe around us. Okay, this is what I want you to this is what I want you to do, because this is when I had a wake up call myself. You know, I haven't been, I'm not the best person, I'm not the greatest person. I've done some very, 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 very messed up things, right? So of course, because of that, there's a lot of self-condemnation, a lot of guilt, a lot of self-hatred, you know, that I'm pretty much really, really just awakening to now. You know, I had some before, then I gathered some more for myself. You know, I was getting over it before, and then I heaped a whole bunch more on myself, so I'm kind of getting over it again. But the self-talk, a guy by the name of Lou Tice, you know, great teacher, man, and his teachings definitely changed my life. But just the whole science of understanding yourself, he had that, and he was able to give that to a lot of people who we look up to. A lot of athletes, a lot of superstars and celebrities get this kind of training. It's what separates the many from the few, from the many. That's why, you know, the majority of the wealth, 97%, is held by 3% of the people in the world. 97% of the wealth held by 3% of the people. That is lopsided, while the 97% of the people work for the 3%. So, you know, they understand these principles. The stars and celebrities that we admire, they understand how the few control the many. But sorry, getting off my point. My whole point was the self-talk thing, the self-mastery. You need to understand what you're saying to yourself, because what you say to yourself, your body believes. What you say to yourself determines your actions, and what you say to yourself determines how you see yourself. So just think about this. If you can, we have about estimated 55,000 thoughts a day, right? So, and the majority of them are negative, and they are about ourselves. So this is what you should do. This is what I want you to do, because this helped me. Try to remember for a week, every time you catch yourself thinking about yourself, what you're saying. Be honest with yourself, because, you know, it's yourself. You want to be as real as you can be, and that's going to help you grow. You have to be real with yourself. You know what? There's still stuff about comfort zones. I can talk about that after though. But there's, you have to be real with yourself. You have to understand. You have to realize. Basically, you have to say whether it's negative or positive. Say, were you thinking about yourself in a negative or positive way? Tally that up at the end of the day, and you'll see exactly how you feel about yourself. And most people will realize that they hate themselves, that they compare themselves to everyone else. They always see what they do wrong, never what they do good. And even when they see what they do good, they feel bad about acknowledging it, and then they believe that they're being greater than they actually are in their minds. That's what people mostly see about themselves. That's our self-image. That's the intangible us that is suspended somewhere within ourselves that we walk out in life. That's the us that limits us from receiving the things that we claim we want, but really deep down don't believe we deserve because of some reason. That's the reason why we don't sink down into certain levels, because we believe that we're better than that. But in other levels, we believe that we're not better than that. Some people believe that they're above dating somebody that is overweight, but they don't think that they could get a celebrity. You know what I mean? While a celebrity is just a regular person. They're just a regular person that a group of people have decided is somebody. That person is only somebody because we've agreed that they're somebody. That's still an image held in our mind. And just like it was pointed out to me, man, and this is perfect. Even that person in our mind is not the same person as they actually are. For example, one person can see a celebrity and say, that's so-and-so, and another person can be like, no, that's too ugly to be so-and-so. The celebrity that they admire, when they actually see them, can say that's too ugly, while the other person is, they're just as beautiful as I thought they were. They're seeing the exact same person two different ways, because the person in each one of their head is either being satisfied or not being satisfied. So the one person, the celebrity, was much more attractive. The one in their head is much more attractive, so this can't be it. While the other one, this matches right with what I had in my head. It's even better. You see what I mean? It's like whatever. That's what we hold of ourselves. The person. Just think about this. This will give you, because the tongue is not just what you physically say. The tongue only actualizes the thoughts, but the thoughts still have power to communicate to the body. So the tongue is only a part of it. The tongue is actually in the mind. That's why the flames were supposed to have sat on their heads. The flames of fire. It's the mental language. But basically, so you have to be able to rule those thoughts in order to create what you want to be. So that's why you want to take note of what you actually say. And this is a good activity. Imagine yourself in situations. Imagine yourself in certain situations, and imagine how, just allow people to naturally respond the way that you would expect them to respond. Say certain things to people and see how they would respond to you. And you can see in your imagination, when you have those arguments in your head with somebody and you actually get mad because I know that's what they would actually say if I actually talked to them, and this is what I would say in response, and really, I know that's how they are, so you get mad. You convince yourself that the arguments kind of happened because your body can't tell the difference between imagination and reality, because there is no difference. They are the same thing. So as you do that naturally, probably argue or imagine situations, or you may have lost a job and you're imagining what life is going to be like when you tell people that you lost your job, or something embarrassing happens, or you have to tell somebody something you don't want to tell them, and you're imagining it and you're dreading it, or something bad's getting ready to happen and all that kind of stuff. You're imagining it. You already know how to do this. So you can use that to show yourself how you feel about situations. You can use that to show yourself how you think people feel about you. Just imagine yourself doing something that you're afraid of doing. Just imagine yourself doing something that you consider as being embarrassing, and boom, you can automatically see what you're afraid of. You're afraid of people seeing you a certain way. That's why you became who you became because you no longer wanted people to see you that way, or you were afraid of people ever seeing you that way. So you created this intangible you that you act out, but that you is held in your mind, the who you are. You know, I'm better than this. I don't do this. I never do that. I only do this. I am, you know. That's a whole nother topic. But I am this, I am that, I am not that, I am not that. By reason, since I'm not that, I'm this. I am this. That's the you. That's the self-image that you hold. That's the you that has low self-esteem because of the way it believes people see it. That's amazing. That's very, very interesting. You know, just like I mean, just think about this, you know. For example, Rick Ross get on stage, open up his shirt, and let his man boobs flop all around. He don't care. People cheer and cheer him on. While other people don't even want to take off their shirt when they go to a pool. Like people can't see through it when it gets wet. Like people don't know what's under there. You know, it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing, you know. To one person they're self-conscious, the other person is a celebrity, you know. The other person probably used to be self-conscious, now whatever. So I'm going to end with that. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. This is what I'm going to call my gospel, the gospel of Lou. Basically my revelation of how we become like the Christ, which is just me standing on the shoulders of people who before me have already seen this. There's so much more, but the rest of it, I think I'd rather let the experts actually show you the in-depth research to how I got where I'm at. And those would be videos that I share with you on later dates, and then just other small stuff that kind of builds on top of this. But I guess this was my foundation. I was really concerned about making something that I can get out there and give to people and say, so this is what I believe, so that people can say, well, how did he come to these conclusions, and how could he say Jesus is just this? You know, I've been in places where people were speaking to through God literally just in their mind, through imagination. They were having experiences with Jesus through imagination that they weren't dictating. Just like when you have a dream, you aren't you, or at least you believe you aren't dictating it. You know, it can progress without you. You can be conscious in it and learn from it and be a third person observer of yourself. You know, have you ever seen yourself in a dream? I have. You know, I remember seeing myself like that as a kid. My memories of me as a kid are seeing like that. As a young kid, I can see my back. I remember seeing a sore that was on my back that my mom was putting calamine lotion on. You know, I remember that. I was in my body and not in my body at the same time. And that was before I could talk. I remember that. It was before I had language. So it's one of my earliest memories. It's like actually what I felt like with my first memory, you know. But so whatever. But I just wanted to be able to, so if I was to say things like that, I could always refer to my gospel, these teachings, you know, this part series or whatever. I could refer to this for people to always use as a reference while I use my other stuff to build on top of it. And so that's why I wanted to make it. And if you've watched this, then I really do appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience with me, because I know I can ramble and go on and go around the point and try to add more stuff and all that kind of stuff, but that's just how I get it out. I didn't really have a curriculum while doing this. I just literally sat down at my computer and started talking into the mic. And I was like, okay, let me open some tabs in advance so I can get to the next thing and all that kind of stuff. But you know, once again, kind of rambling on. I received so many phone calls while doing this. So I'm about to end this. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Man, I just hope that I've brought some awakening to anybody. Really, I really hope that I've made some people think differently on truth. One of the first prophecies that I ever received, and this is when I got to Newcastle too, this is one of the first prophecies, the first time anyone's laid a hand on me and said, wow. Oh, that's what happened. He said, wow. Wow. The Lord says, as Martin Luther was to his generation, so shall you be to yours. And I didn't know who Martin Luther was. I didn't know who that was, so I didn't know what he did, what he went against, what his research was, and all that kind of stuff. I didn't find that out till later. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that this is like the stuff that I feel like God shows me when I asked him to show me his mysteries, the mysteries of his universe. When I first started to get revelation, I asked the Holy Spirit to give me the most non-religious revelation that I could get, that he could give me. Something that would go against, something that would shatter what I believe so much that it would be hard for me to receive it. And every single time, pretty much every single time, that I've taught in church, I've been afraid to teach it because it's been unlike what is normally believed. Unlike. For example, stuff that scares me, man. Just stuff that scares me, for example. But because it'll be time to talk about that stuff in other videos. But one more thing that I will say, just to kind of end this, to end the whole thing of my gospel, right? To end this, there was a time when I went away to seek God. I tried to go away for 30 days and fast and all that kind of stuff, and it didn't necessarily go the way that I had planned, but I got the revelation through a dream. Now this is before, it wasn't before I believed in dreams, but trust me, by this time my faith in dreams was severely shaken. So I didn't necessarily understand what this was. So basically in the dream, I'm being chased by these reptile demon type things, and they chase me into a place where something basically tells me that I can get what I'm looking for. And at that time I was looking for basically deeper levels of God. I was looking for what I was missing. I was looking for the thing that I was crying out for, the outpouring of his spirit and understanding, and to have the process to get what I wanted to attain, as opposed to at that time I had a level, but it wasn't getting me what I wanted, no matter how hard I tried. So I didn't know myself, pretty much. I didn't know how I worked. I didn't know how to attain those things. So at that time, man, I really felt dry, so I wanted more. So basically this entity in the dream was telling me that I get that by caring for God's heart. And when he said that in the dream, you know how in the dream you know what people mean. Well, at least in my dreams, I know it. I know it most part. I know what it means, and then it usually unfolds later throughout life. It becomes clearer and clearer. So he was like, basically, this is how he said it. This is why I don't want to say it this way, because it's going to sound crazy. But he said, "Ask not what you can do. Ask not what God can do for your heart, but ask what you can do for God's heart." And when he said that, I understood that he meant his entire creation, not his church, his entire creation, all those that he created, all those who were in his image. That's all of us. God is spirit. We all have one of those, right? So God is spirit. God is in all of us. So we just don't know it. Some are awake and some are not. So he's like, do that. And I started bawling in the dream. I'm crying uncontrollably in the dream, to the point where outside I was probably like like crying outside as I'm asleep. So then there's another scene where basically there's some religious leaders from different religions. There's a group of them, and they have this basically they have this a community center where they're basically coming together in that ideal. They want to help the community. That's what they had in common. But what they had uncommon was God. God confounded their languages. So they tried to come together for this thing, and we're in this auditorium, and in comes another one of these demons again, and it's trying to get these religious leaders. It's trying to stop them from doing what they're pretty much doing. They were registering people for the summer programs at this community center to get people off the streets, to give them something to do, which is always necessary. So basically, while it's coming to them, everybody's screaming, people are terrified, people can't even get up and move, they're so scared. So it comes back to me what the entity in the dream said, ask not what God can do for your heart, but ask what you can do for God's heart. So I'm thinking in my head, well, if these people are your heart and you love them that much, that means that what I want for people, because that's what I want freedom for people. I want to be able to pray for the sick and they be healed. At that time, that was really what I was into. I wanted to be able to give people a word. I want to be able to encourage them with words from God and things like that, and honestly, I still do. But now I feel like I have the principles to attain it. So at that time I didn't. But I'm thinking as I look at this thing about to attack, what God is telling me is his heart, even though they don't believe what I believe as a Christian at that time, because these were, one was a Muslim, one was a Catholic priest, one was a Jewish rabbi, and I believe that there was a sheikh. I believe that's for Hindus. One of them was there. So these are people from different backgrounds. That's where I get this gospel from. All of them. Though I'm using the Bible the entire time, this gospel is from them too. I've seen every single one of them say the exact same thing that I've shown you here. The exact same gospel that Paul has said. The exact same gospel that Jesus' disciples said. The exact same gospel in the Old Testament. It's the exact same story. That's why Paul says the exact same thing that they heard in the wilderness is what you're hearing today. It's the gospel. The difference is they didn't mix it with faith. Faith. They didn't endure through the wilderness and make it to the promised land. They didn't have the organ of sight that allows them to see what isn't actualized around them. They didn't have faith. They didn't mix what they heard with faith. Remember it, there's a scripture where Moses says, be careful not to make a graven image. I want to look it up, but yeah, so I'm not gonna look it up now, but basically Moses says, be careful not to create an image of God, because you only heard his voice on the mountain. You never saw his form. I saw his form, so I can make an image. That's the gospel. That's what Paul says that they heard in the wilderness and that we hear today, but the difference is they didn't mix it with faith. And the exact same thing will happen to us too if we don't mix it with faith. We'll never make it into the promised land. We'll never be what we are to be. Oh man, I was supposed to end this a long time ago, but man, this is going on. But that's the gospel, man. And basically what happened was I stood up and I said, stop, at the thing, and it stopped and looked at me as if it was like surprised that I knew I could do that. And it was like, let me see if he really believes, and started to go back at it again as if, I would be like, well, since it kept moving, I guess maybe I don't have any authority. And then I was like, no, if this is God's heart, it must work. And I was like, stop. And then the thing froze, and it, basically that was the end of that scene. It stopped, and next thing you know, I'm in front of these guys. I'm sitting with them at a desk, and they're trying to battle what this thing was according to their religious beliefs, and they're arguing. And I'm sitting there looking at them, and I'm like, actually, I become aware that I'm sitting there and they're arguing, and I'm realizing what they've been saying, and I just look at them, and it just hits me like, don't you get it? Don't you understand? Each one of you has something that God wants. It has to, basically I was trying to tell them that it has to come together and be one in order for it to actually be the picture. In order for it to be successful. That's what I was trying to tell them. And at that time, I didn't know what that meant at all. All I knew was that I should love each religion as if they were Christian, because that's God's heart. That's all I knew. I didn't know it meant that I would be learning from each religion, the mysteries of each religion, from the customs of each religion, what they believe about the body, the metaphysical body, the physical body, their science versus their religion, versus science in America versus, you know, religion in America, and all this stuff. I didn't know that that's what God was saying. That each one of them have a picture of the pie. They have a piece. They're all a slice of the pie. That's what I saw them as at that table. They're not the full circle. They're not complete. But each one of them is a part of completion. And until we come together and reunite as that one language, the Jews, those who worship God, those who really want to know the Creator, not the religious, not the Pharisees, but the Jews, those who are Pharisees, not Pharisees, but those who are Jews at heart, Paul talks about. Jews, those who want to be as God, you know, those who, or the sons of God, those who want that knowledge, the ones who want to know. Those are the people that are in every religion. And in every religion, there's been a revelation. There's been revelations throughout time. Every single decade, there's been a major revelation. And through that major revelation is a revival, a reviving of the way things were when that revelation was known. When revelation is known, for example, and I'll try to end with this, when that man ran the 4-minute mile, or when, you know, man ran 55 miles an hour or 45 miles an hour and became the fastest man, you know, there was a revelation. Oh, we can do that? Oh, that's possible? Once that became known, it became law. And then this world bent to it. It's the exact same thing. That's what revelation is. Revelation brings law. That's why through revelation we are able to follow the entire law, because we become it. It's the exact same thing. When that what is intangible becomes nature and can be demonstrated and people can see that it exists, when there's a mark to follow, a role model, remember model means DNA manipulation, when there's a role model, then people have something to follow, and once that thing's introduced into this world, it becomes law. But guess what? Some people don't live by the same laws, even in the same realm. They talk about that in the Bible too, where it says that it'll rain on some house, and some houses it won't rain on. That's a literal occurrence there. Because of the atmosphere there, it can literally rain on one person's house and not the next door neighbors. So reality, just like, you know, 10 people at a car accident see the 10 different things, it's the same thing. Alright, so this doesn't conclude at all, just like none of the epistles in the Bible that Paul has does not conclude his gospel, but it is the fragment that they have, our foundation, I guess you could say. So this is going to be my foundation, and I'm going to stop this here. I really do appreciate you sticking with me, and I hope that you stick with me for more videos and more revelation to come. Whew, shout me a holler, man. I might not be able to respond to everything and everybody, and some things I may not respond to honestly, because I'm not here to debate. I'm just here to share. You take this, get your own perception of it, and then build on to yours, if it at all helps. But you guys have been a great audience. Right? Oh man, more to come. You guys take it easy. Peace.